Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the last listening session for this week. This is the California Truth and Healing Council listening session for the Eastern region, but it is open to anybody who wants to drop in. How you define what region you belong to is up to you. And if you missed the other ones this week, you're also welcome to join this one. This is the first week of monthly listening sessions, and they're being held at the request of the council to get more ongoing input, feedback, and just facilitate discussions with the community in general. The council itself meets less frequently. So in real time, it'll be about quarterly. Right now, it could be about every 1.5 months. And right now they're meeting a bit more frequently just to get some of the business of the council situated. Before we get started, I would like to, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm Christina Snyder. I'm the governor's tribal advisor. And I'm charged with leading and convening the council, but I'm not a member of the council. I'm a member of Dry Creek Pomo. But we do have some council members on. And so if you would like to introduce yourselves before I hand it off to Loretta to introduce herself and go through today's meeting, that would be great. I see Councilmember Bojorquez is on, Councilmember Burris, and Councilmember Sisk. If any of you would like to introduce yourselves or give any thoughts before we get started.
Good afternoon. I'm Isaac Bojorquez, and I actually missed the listening session down in my region in Monterey. So I was just joining in to listen, and welcome this afternoon, everybody that's here. Thank you so much.
Hi, so I'm Anthony Burris, and I am a member of Ione Band of Miwok Indians. And I've been kind of trying to listen in on the various sessions this week, so I've been in and out of them, but Eastern is my region. And I am a PhD student at UC Davis. I've represented my tribe on NAGPRA issues for about 6 years, and I'm kind of getting back into that right now as we speak, doing working with the tribe on NAGPRA. I was working with state parks during the last year on other truth-telling efforts at specific parks that are support Marshall Gold Discovery State Park. And I think that's pretty much covers me. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Sisk, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I'm Colleen Sisk. I'm leader of the Winnemem-Wintu tribe in the Macleod River watershed. And of course, we have lots of standing issues as far as being unrecognized and dealing with the state and federal governments about our lands and our rights and our culture and traditions. And I have been trying to listen to the various meetings to see what the issues are in the entire state, because, you know, we are the California Indians, and we are what's left of the ancestors who put this down here for us. And we have obligations and rights to stand up for those issues and to make sure that, you know, things change in a good way for all of us. And so that's why I'm kind of hoping that we can get good information from everybody, and hopefully everybody will volunteer, you know, whatever your concerns are, whatever you're thinking about, you know, you need to share that. We got to get started somewhere. Not that we can do miracles, but, you know, we're going to do the best we can. And I have confidence in Christina that she's leading us down a good path to reach out and to try to reach, you know, the people who can say something. And you got to say something for your grandmas. You got to say something for your kids and your grandkids. You know, if we're going to continue to be California Indians, we got this chance now from the governor's office. So let's make the best of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. And so now I would like to hand it off to Loretta Miranda, who can introduce herself, who just joined my office and will be helping a lot on these efforts. For just clarity for these groups, as we move forward on the monthly regional listening sessions, Loretta and I will be kind of tag teaming on taking the lead, but we'll both always kind of be on if you need anything. So Loretta, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Loretta Miranda. I am a descendant of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians. I am Serrano and Cupeño. A little bit of my professional background: before joining the office, I worked for the Karuk tribe as their general counsel and also their associate general counsel at one point, and also worked at a law firm in the Bay Area focusing on Indian law. Prior to my legal life, I worked at the Friendship House in San Francisco, which is a drug and alcohol treatment center. And I am looking forward to this discussion. And as Christina said, we are kind of tag teaming it. And this is, I will be leading this discussion and Christina will be, or facilitating. This is actually community led, but I will be facilitating this discussion today, and Christina will jump in. And one thing I did want to note that I don't think we've mentioned is that this is being recorded. And so please keep that in mind. This will be posted on the internet. So if you're uncomfortable with that, just take it into consideration. And Christina touched on it.
I will put the page where everything is going to be posted. We'll post them to all of the recordings from this week tomorrow. I'll put that in the chat right now.
Thank you. That's helpful. And I think to touch on the scheduling, right now we are, the council is divided into regions, but like Christina said, you're welcome to join any of the listening sessions, and how you define, which region you would like to belong to is completely up to you. So that is open to everybody. And I think the reason we have it, one of the reasons we have it in regions is looking towards a more of a post-COVID safe world where we are able to go out and meet with you in person. Our sessions will be in person with those corresponding regions with a virtual component. And so what we are planning to do today is to provide an overview of the council and some updates of where the council is at right now. And in the future, we are going to compile a shorter, one-page document providing these updates and distribute that out to the group so that you have kind of a consolidated place for updates before the meetings. But today, you have to bear with us. We're going to go through a PowerPoint that'll provide some of that background information just so folks are all on the same page. Because we recognize that this might be the first time interacting with the Truth and Healing Council. But again, noting that this is not an official meeting of the council. This is a listening session, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. So on that note, as far as like consolidating information and getting that out to everybody, we have heard feedback that it would be helpful to have a blog style website. And so we are in the process of creating a WordPress that we can put all the updated information there. Just again, these recordings are available, but in case folks don't want to sit through, watching these over again and seeing the awkwardness of the Zoom, we will have a consolidated spot where you can look at updates. And so that is in the works. It does not exist yet, and our team is working on that. And I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And let me know if you guys can see this. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint? All right, thank you, Council Sisk. I can see your face. I can't really see anybody else's, so thank you, appreciate it. So what is the Truth and Healing Council? The Truth and Healing Council was created by Governor Newsom via Executive Order N1519, and it's made up of representatives from California Native American tribes, but can also include relevant state and local agencies and other relevant non-governmental stakeholders. The council is led and convened by the governor's tribal advisor and is limited term. what does the council do? So pursuant to the executive order, the council is charged with bearing witness to, recording, examining existing documentation of, and receiving California Native American narratives regarding the historical relationship between the state of California and California Native Americans in order to clarify the historical record of such relationship in the spirit of truth and healing. As I believe Christina mentioned, the council is required to report annually to the Office of the Tribal Advisor, and there will be a final report issued by January 1st of 2025. This final report aims to reflect a holistic understanding of the historical relationship between California Native Americans and the state, and will be modeled on similar truth and reconciliation documents. And it doesn't have to be modeled on similar truth and reconciliation documents from existing international similar groups. This is something that is completely open for discussion, and but we can borrow from those international frameworks. But this is something that's up to the discretion of the council, and also based on feedback from the community. And so one way to look at this, or a way that's helpful that came up during the previous council meeting, was looking at kind of what does the state have to be sorry for, and how can we address and prevent those policies from reoccurring in the future, and to the extent how can we kind of fix something that's so devastating, so large, to the extent that we can. And so one subject that comes up often is reparations. And so the question of, will the council examine reparations? Yes. So pursuant to the charter, which I will provide that link later after getting through the PowerPoint, the charter is available on the website, which was passed in December. So pursuant to that charter, the council may examine and make recommendations aimed at reparation and restoration, and consider how to prevent similar depredations or policies in the future. And again, that website's right there, but I'll put it in the chat once I get through the PowerPoint. In terms of council structure, so again, it's organized under the charter that's available on the website, and it consists of voting members and non-voting members. There are 12 voting members, all of which must be representatives of California Native American tribes. We also do have alternate voting members in the event, which I think that might actually be the next slide. So you can just go down there. As far as the structure of the council, so again, there's 12 voting members, and we've divided up into regions. So 3 of the members must be from the Southern, Central, Northern, and Eastern region, with one of those 3 being from a non-federally recognized tribe that's on the list maintained by the Heritage Commission. So membership as a voting member is available to duly elected officials or appointed designees of the tribes. And this is to accommodate for those instances where perhaps an elected official is no longer on the council, or there is another appointed designee that is sanctioned by the tribe to appear or to be a voting member. And so this is to allow for that flexibility. And voting members of the council will be compensated with per diem, reasonable travel expenses. Of course, when travel comes back, we are very optimistic that we will be able to see your faces in person soon. But for now, we are on Zoom. So as far as non-voting members, the council has the ability to have non-voting members on it. This can include, but would not be limited to, representatives from the state, local agencies, academics, and community leaders. The council did discussed this at the previous meeting, and for this time, the council is going to be limited to voting members while kind of getting it up off the ground. And but this is still an option, but for now it's going to be based on the voting members. Public participation. This is where these listening sessions come in. So the council welcomes and encourages all available methods for public participation, meaning that the council meetings are open and they have opportunity, that those meetings have their opportunities for public comment. You may also submit written statements to the council, make oral statements and testimony, and participate in dialogues and informal meetings, which is like this session, a listening session. And on that note, we are compiling a summary of these comments that will be made available on the website and also for council consideration. And again, recorded, so everyone will have access to the lovely comments everyone makes. Just to give a visual of the council structure, the voting members are the decision makers. They're the tribal elected officials and duly authorized representatives. Again, those non-voting members, by definition, do not have a vote, so but they are on the council or will be eventually, if that is what the council chooses to do. And then public participation and affiliated events. And so this is the area where listening sessions come in, members of the public, academics, non-governmental organizations. And this structure it came about through tribal consultation. And this council, it's unique, and it's the first entity of its kind in the United States. And so it's critical that the council receives the input from the community, and that the population, the California Native population, drives the work. Speaking of consultation, the tribal advisor is tasked with consulting with all California tribes before January 1st, 2024, which may have to be extended because of COVID, but we will be consulting with tribes to record and gather existing documentation of received narratives regarding historical relationships between the state of California and California Native Americans. And the consultation request form is on the website, which we can walk through after the little PowerPoint presentation.
And I will jump in and say that we will, once we're kind of out of the COVID space, be reaching out to each of the tribes to accommodate, to actually affirmatively invite those consultations. But in the interim, if you'd like to contact us, you can request consultation at that site as well.
Thank you, Christina. And so the council welcomes and encourages the participation of all California Native Americans, regardless of enrollment status. This is regardless of being a descendant, being enrolled, being from a non-federally recognized tribe. This is a space that you have a voice here, and this is where we want to hear your stories and receive input. So this is not limited to a particular group of individuals. The historical depredations under examination of the council are part of the collective experience of peoples of California Native American descent, and their impacts are not limited to citizenship status. So again, your voice is heard here. Members of academia. So researchers, scholars, and educators are encouraged to participate in the work of the council, whether as non-voting members or a non-member supportive capacity. And I will give an update on the subcommittees that the council formed at the last meeting. One of them is academic partnership. And this is for one of the reasons for having this subcommittee. There's various reasons, but one is that staff has received, folks reaching out and maybe they're working on something similar through, their academic endeavors, or just want to know how they can be helpful or how they can participate. Non-governmental organizations. The council encourages the involvement of NGOs that could be helpful in providing support services or researching or amplifying the work of the council. They can host affiliate events, which may be publicized to the council in conjunction with the quarterly meetings of the council. Also may submit documentation, testimonials, and fully participate during those quarterly meetings of the council. And so, but again, this is in order to amplify the work of the council and provide that additional support where they could be helpful. In terms of partnership, the council welcomes partnership from organizations, agencies, and individuals who can provide services related to the mission of the council, including but not limited to research and scholarship, documentary filmmaking, emotional community and behavioral support, and media communications. And I will touch on the emotional community and behavioral support. The council is looking into a wellness practitioner or multiples, and definitely welcome feedback on that, but I will get to that when I provide the updates after this PowerPoint. And I appreciate you bearing with me through a PowerPoint. I know it's not the most exciting thing on Zoom, and what we really want to do is get your input. So we'll make it quick. Again, the council meetings, Christina touched on this. It's a 2-day format and meeting on a quarterly basis. The council is charged with performing its work with transparency, inclusion, and respect of all experiences, viewpoints, and backgrounds, and encourages all available methods for public participation. And I think the next slide, yes, goes into the more detail of the actual meeting. So day 1 of these quarterly meetings will be facilitated with a talking circle using the expertise of culturally appropriate wellness practitioner, who again has not been chosen at this point, and we're welcoming feedback. We've heard we received some information during the previous listening sessions regarding there's the Native Wellness Institute, and then there's a Indigenous Circle of Healing, I believe, and I have the name, I'll look that up in a second, but definitely welcome feedback on that. Oh, so sorry, day 1 of the meeting will be kind of more that talking circle, and day 2 will be dedicated to a hearing style presentation of historic findings, evidence, outcomes, and experiences as directed by the council. And again, there's this Google form, and I'm not sure if I'm able to highlight and put it in the chat, but we are, and Christina, can you highlight that? I see you went off mute.
I pasted it in the chat like 2 slides back. So
Oh,
you should be able to find it in the chat.
And so our Google form is an area where you can provide input on either particular cultural wellness practitioners, or if you have an opinion on whether there needs to be multiple, which I think that seems to be what the feedback is that we are receiving, that with California is such a diverse tribal population, that we may need multiple folks to help facilitate these meetings. And the reason for doing this is this is the Truth and Healing Council. There's a lot of trauma that will be discussed and opened in these meetings, and the provider will be able to provide tools and resources with what to do or how to use those tools to begin to heal and do it in a meaningful and helpful way, because I think oftentimes, especially with historical trauma, it's hard to, once you get into that space, it's hard to kind of pull yourself back out or use tools in order to help start healing yourself and the people around you. And so that's just very important, that we want to be cognizant of that, the the topics of discussion are heavy, and we want to make sure that we have someone there that's able to provide that support, or multiple people to provide that support. Again, the meetings are virtual for the time being for everyone's safety. When we do transition to a place where we are able to travel, I think right now the state, we are not allowed for non-essential travel, but we do want to provide like a hybrid. So going to the different regions, having the in-person meeting, but providing a virtual component in order to increase participation and kind of just alleviate some of the concerns and increase participation and input. And this is a little bit dated as far as what's next. And I will stop sharing my screen. So thank you for bearing with us through that PowerPoint. I want to provide just a couple of updates from what happened at the previous meetings. So back in December of 2020, the council adopted a draft charter, and I am going to put that in the chat unless Christina already has. I haven't been able to open the chat to see. No, okay. So this is the draft charter. It's available at this website, or actually this is the charter that was adopted on the website. And that was again in December of 2020. The council did meet again on February 26th. And during that meeting, the draft bylaws that I'm going to be putting into the chat right now were discussed, but they are not adopted yet. These are still in draft form. There are some revisions for council's consideration that will be discussed at the next meeting, which is TBD, but happening soon. And just to give an update on what that meeting, kind of what happened at the meeting, actions that were taken, the council created 2 subcommittees. They haven't been staffed yet, but they have been created. One of those being a youth council and the second being an academic partnership. And so again, those are committees that have been established, but not staffed yet. On the agenda for that meeting though, there was consideration for a funding partnership committee and a committee kind of tasked with dealing with identity, disenrollment, non-federally recognized tribal issues. And but those have not been created, but that's something that the council was considering. I think it was a time with the meeting, we ran out of time and weren't able to get to some of the agenda items. But again, with the culturally informed wellness practitioner, the 2 institutes or programs that we have received feedback on are the Native Wellness Institute, which is based out of Oregon, I believe, and also the Indigenous Wellness Circle, which is based out of LA County. And so, and that doesn't account for the Google Forms. This was just a conversation that happened this week at the listening sessions. And so definitely welcome feedback on that. We also heard from community that it would, thinking of the idea of using art as healing as a way to facilitate some of these discussions, whether that be traditional art, modern, native art, but kind of taking that kind of holistic wellness approach as well and using that as a tool. Some other topics that, and then just kind of giving an overview of what this week has been. It's been very, I think it's been great that each day the conversations have been different, and that is kind of the purpose of this listening session and listening season, as one of our council members pointed out, that this is kind of when the council met in February, scope was discussed, but we're kind of, the council's wanting to backwards engineer, for lack of better words, what that scope is. So wanting to hear from the community and then figure out what the scope is, because this is a large, this can cover so much, but how to kind of frame the work is going to come from the community. And so hearing from everybody is, utmost important. And from that, I think then the council can, better define the scope that they if they would choose to, what scope they want. Is very open-ended right now. And so I think this is the council's listening season to hear from everybody. And
You mind if I jump in real quick, Loretta?
go for it.
I did get a private comment about representation on the council, and did want to note that the council itself and the voting membership was designed to be as representative as possible, understanding that at least on the NAHC list alone, there's over 170 discrete tribes. And so given that it's not quite, and also you've all seen the map of how many different cultures and language groups and everything there are. And so given that fact, it's almost impossible to get every perspective on the seated council. But what I did want to focus on a bit more is that the council itself is not dictating the narrative, not dictating the experience, not doing any of that. The council itself is receiving those narratives and those experiences. So if there are people that you think, or areas that you think, or cultural identities that you think should be represented in this space, please send those folks to these sessions, to the council meetings, to potentially staff some of the subcommittees that'll be formed. And then also there will be opportunities for hosting in certain locations. And so, in those spaces, I anticipate that those tribes and those cultural identities will kind of take the lead or the theme for those sessions. So just wanted to put that out there that, this is our attempt at trying to make something that fits for a lot of people, but we understand we can't possibly do that, and that we have to balance the challenges of having a decision-making body that's small enough to make decisions quickly and expediently and as holistically as possible, but also make sure that everybody's included. So I will stop talking now. Loretta, I'll hand it back to you again.
Thank you. That was very helpful to clarify too. Let's see. Again, just wanted to touch on the fact that each of these listening sessions this week have been completely different, which is, it's great to have this, wide amount of feedback, but I did want to just kind of highlight a couple of the things that were discussed. We've heard, personal stories from individuals of their family home being dispossessed by a rancher using the legal system that, was put in place to do such thing, to dispossess people of land, Native people of land and their homes. And so just hearing, so we've heard, personal stories, we've heard personal stories of identity and the personal effects of disenrollment. We've heard those stories, and also just input on wellness practitioners. And I think what I would like to do is first turn it over to any council members to see if there are any specific questions that you have of the group. And then if you're comfortable, if everyone wants to turn on their camera, that would be cool so we can see your faces, but if not, it's totally fine. And I think as far as, so I think, yeah, we'll have council members ask questions, but as far as formalities, I think if you just want to unmute yourself, if you have a comment after the council members ask their questions, if they have any, then that's how we can do it, unless people are, talking over each other. But I don't think we need to formally raise hands or anything. But I'm going to turn it over to council members to see if there's anything in particular they want to ask the group. If not, then I do have a couple of questions. So whichever council member wants to go first, and if not, that's completely fine if you don't have any questions.
No, I'm just really wanting to hear the Native community and the concerns that they have. So, because I missed my region, I was in another meeting, so I definitely want to give everybody else the opportunity to share.
I also, I think it's important for us to hear the community and the different tribes and the concerns that are happening at different levels so that we can refocus. But my own question is about the California judgment role. And I'm wondering how many of the unrecognized tribes still have people who are alive that have California judgment roll numbers that were supposedly guaranteed to provide these services. So that was, that's my only thing is like, I brought it up in council before, is like wondering how many people in the state, how many Indians in the state still have people in their tribes and communities that have these roll numbers. Thank you. One other thing that I wanted to bring about too is that, I was a teacher and I taught in the elementary schools and the high schools for a little bit. And then I was also a recruiter for Indian students at Chico State campus, along with other recruiters from UC Davis, UC Berkeley, Humboldt, and Sacramento traveled together to recruit students in the entire state. And finding out the issues at the college level of retaining students once we got them there. I think there's a lot of issues with our college system in what they could do, and especially with us being the highest populated state in the nation, as well as having the most diverse tribal entities. I mean, we have at least 135 different dialects or languages in the state, and yet our students are not finding the support and the place to launch their own issues as far as being there and graduating. And we're not holding the campuses accountable for graduation rates. We have actively recruited our own people into those universities, yet the outcome has not, really paid off for us. So I would like us to look into those kinds of things too. Okay, that's it. On with the people.
That comment's very appreciated. Councilmember Burris, do you have any questions?
I was just thinking that one thing that might be interesting for us to hear about is maybe what kind of work people think should go to subcommittees, what kind of subcommittees should be formed. It seems like that's probably like where a lot of the work is going to happen. So I'm interested in what the community thinks are important topics that would justify creating a subcommittee for.
Thank you, council member. And so if anybody, again, just kind of unmute and maybe introduce yourself. And if you want to speak to any of these questions that have been asked, or if you just have any sort of comment to make, please go ahead and do that at this time. I'll mute myself.
Haku, this is Monique Sanoki. I think it would be appropriate to have a committee regarding the California Indian Museum in Sacramento. I don't know if you're aware of that process. It's going on 35 years maybe. They're on their second wave of community meetings and participation. So they've redone this. This is the fourth time. And being at the last session and the session before that, I have a lot of concerns because 3 times the money kind of disappeared and no museum came after community members, artists, elders all came together. We hashed this all out. We thought we were moving forward and it just disappeared. One time the money disappeared into the railroad fund. So I definitely think that this organization, this agency would be good to look at that and bring in a stronger, more unified voice, with some teeth. Because right now it's been just people out of the community, artists and elders and filmmakers and, those guys that are interested in museums and working on museums. We've had it laid out completely and now they're starting over again. So really the money is going to the county and their employees. And this would be the 4th architecture firm that's going to recreate it. So my concern is that a lot of the elders that were in the last session with us and the other 2 are gone now. And they were top California artists and, spiritual leaders and dancers and singers. So I'm not sure where they're going with this new process. I know the meeting that I attended last year did not go well. We weren't well received. So, and please feel free to call me if we can work on this or find more people that have worked on it before. But I think definitely it's an issue. And then also the other one is I'd like to maybe relook at the MLPA. They did an MLPA process like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And, we got gypped out of that regarding gathering rights and gathering permits. And, you're only allowed to gather 10 pounds of wet seaweed. And that's nothing. That's like a container this big. So I think that's something that would be helpful to relook at, revisit, and see what the tribes and the Native communities were saying versus what we actually got. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, and you're in luck because I'm in charge of the Indian Museum. So if we can do better on this new round, then we are all ears. And really what's happening right now is there's an RFP out to get a design build firm. If you know of any design build firms that are good at doing things in a way that's culturally sensitive, we would love to have that. They're going to be starting from what was already done. So they're starting from all of the plans, all of the everything that was already designed, possibly tweaking for, enhanced and advances in technology, but will not be kind of starting from scratch. So just wanted to clarify that. But we do want to have a lot of community input. And for clarity here, there is a task force that was assembled of tribal leaders. And they're going to be reviewing the RFPs, and they're required to consult with the community as well. So that task force was basically assembled. Am I frozen or is everybody just not moving? Okay. Sorry, that was very odd. So there is a task force of tribal leaders assembled, and their job is to direct how the museum goes, but they have to do that in consultation with the community. So what we can do is set up this kind of style listening session for them, if that's helpful, and just make sure that we're getting all of the community engagement and input. At this time, it's more of kind of like making sure stuff is moving and getting in place to move forward with that work. But then once it is, it'll probably move pretty quickly. So want to make sure that everybody is engaged on that. And then on the second piece, we should connect on the side so that we can figure out how to deal with that.
Definitely, again, going back to bringing in the people that have been involved for the last 30, 40 years and making sure our voices we can follow it through, because again, it was all the artists and people that make traditional regalia and singers and dancers and academics, so really even expanding that, not just to tribal departments, but to, the community as a whole, because sometimes you get locked in, somebody will get a flyer and it doesn't get distributed, or somebody else's interest, or they don't know who's doing what. So again, really expanding that and making sure that, as somebody who was really involved, we met for a whole year, I think, every month. So I want to make sure that everybody, that already participated, all those voices are still there, because I haven't seen any of that data come forward.
Yeah, and so we will make sure that happens, and just this is going to be like a 10-year lift. So we don't want to exhaust people on the front end, and we want to make sure that they're engaged throughout. And then what we'll do is we'll talk to Cal Arts Council, who can maybe help facilitate some of that and provide, well, I shouldn't say this, but maybe provide some support for engagement, because we know that it's you're bringing your whole selves to this work. So we want to make sure that it's not just, we're asking people to volunteer their entire lives to something.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Anyone want to jump on in and introduce themselves or have any input on, or Christina, go for it.
We do have a raised hand, and that is Terry, if she'd like to unmute.
Hi, Manahu. My name is Terry Reddell. I'm a member of the Bishop Paiute tribe in Bishop, California, and I'm the director of the Owens Valley Indian Water Commission. So we're tribal consortia related, or over here in Eastern Sierra and our homelands that we call Paehanadu. But anyway, one of the things that I'd really like to see the council or a commission work on is addressing the the water rights system in the state of California as it relates to indigenous water rights, looking at doing reform on the prior appropriation system that's in place, because that system really excludes indigenous people from claiming first users water rights. And over here where we live, we have documented use and evidence of so many miles of ditches and canals that we dug by hand, and we were forcibly marched out of our homelands by the United States Cavalry down to Fort Tejon in the 1800s, and we made our way back, and we were displaced of those lands, and the settlers were making use of the waterways, and now the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power uses a lot of those water systems that were in place that, you know, we physically built ourselves with sticks and rocks and so forth. And yeah, we don't have those water rights. And so the problem is, you know, with the prior appropriation, you have to have continuous non-interrupted use and be enforced off those lands. You know, our use was interrupted, but not voluntarily. And so looking at reform for that is like a very high priority for us. The other thing is hunting and fishing rights. This last year was the first time the tribe was able to get, working with the California Fish and Wildlife Service, get some deer tags set aside for tribal members, which was a big victory, because where we live, our area, it's so hard to get a deer tag. It's one of the highly sought out areas for hunting in the state of California. And so like my son, who is almost 25, he's been putting in for a deer tag almost every single year and has yet to get one. And yet he's indigenous to this area. So seeing that increase, and well as being able to gather year round, like wood, because a lot of the homes burn wood for heating. And then also we want to see education, like the real indigenous people story told in the schools. You know, and there's more movement in that area now, but actual, you know, curriculum that's developed with, you know, input from the indigenous people and have it, you know, taught like the real history. And there's a lot more, but the most important ones, like I said, was the prior appropriation reform on the water rights in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And yeah, we're here to hear all of these comments. So if you have more, don't you can keep going if you want, because this is the space to do that. So definitely don't want to limit you if you have more.
I would like to make a comment. My name is Desiree Langley. I am Paiute and Shoshone and a member of the Susanville Indian Rancheria. I'm also a PhD candidate at the University of California, Davis in the Native American Studies program. I have been recently working on the advisory committee to the chancellor and getting, you know, having conversations about increasing faculty, Native American and specifically California Indian faculty and staff at UC Davis. And we've also talked about tuition waivers for California Indian students specifically. I don't know if you have all watched the Land Grant University presentation by UC Berkeley, but you know, they talk about specific things, they name specific things that we can do as land grant universities. So I think it would be a great idea for the council. I know Chief Sisk talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but develop recommendations and calls to action for post-secondary institutions in California to create and maintain accountability to California Indian nations and be responsive to the needs of the Native communities. I think some examples of this are like increasing the hiring of California Indians and Native American professors, faculty, and staff at universities, develop meaningful relationships with California Indian communities. I know that a lot of times, you know, a lot of universities approach tribes for funding, but we need to look past that and really think about, you know, what we would like these relationships with these universities to be. I know we deal a lot with them with NAGPRA, and I know that the UC system right now is developing their council to hopefully repatriate the items. I'm also thinking about increasing funding specifically for California Indian students through tuition waivers or scholarships. A call for colleges and universities to support California Indian languages. They do have archives, UC Berkeley holds the Harrington records, along with numerous other anthropologists that, tribes need access to. And it's important that we, revitalize our languages. And also, speaking to what has been talked about for the last couple of days that I've been able to attend, but to develop curriculum that prioritize Native knowledge, requiring post-secondary institutions to create mandatory courses in Native American history and in California Indian history and law. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, my name is Eileen Belton. I'm Pomo, and my family is from Yokale and Robinson Rancheria. I am a state worker, and we just also started the Native American Human Rights Committee. So that's brand new. So we want to work with every single state department that you guys are working with. I am so interested in all the earth, wind, fire, water, medicine, education. I am, this Saturday, as a matter of fact, I'm going to a summit for environmental stuff. I would like, we're just building our human rights committee and trying to get full membership. So I'm out campaigning for that. And I love to work with you guys. I am so happy you guys exist, and I want to work with, we have people all across the state, all across this California state that we could get. So Native people getting into our membership. So I just want to say that, and I'm going to be looking forward to everything you guys do because I'm on the same plane. Thank you, Yahweh.
Thank you. We look forward to your participation. We do have a chat. Would like to hear more from Desiree Rose because we should seek adding historic building at all reservations. You would like to speak to this?
Sorry, you cut out. What is the chat?
So the chat says, would like to hear more from Desiree Rose because we should seek adding historic building at all reservations. And I don't know if you'd like to speak to this. If not, that's fine too.
Historic building at all reservations?
Yeah, or Oliver, or if you would like to come on and maybe clarify your comment.
I just think that the universities right now are not responsive to our needs as Native communities, as California Indian communities. And I think we need to, there is this talk of reparations. And I know that, maybe we need to think about more than financial reparations. Why financial reparations are awesome. I think some people talked about it in the previous days of like seeing a big number and how, to back up. So I think there are, ways that we can create positive change with California Indian communities and the universities system within the state. So I would like to see that happen. I am getting ready to graduate, but I would like those that come after me to really, have the opportunity to go to universities and not feel that they aren't able to go because there isn't a scholarship available. And I think it's also important that we take into consideration our federally unrecognized tribal communities, that they be a part of that because, my partner, he comes from a federally unrecognized tribe, and it's just it's hard because I could get scholarships and he wasn't able to get certain scholarships that I would receive. And I think tuition waivers or, conversations that develop these relationships between the university and, have them know who we are because they are on our lands and they have a responsibility to uphold our people since they hold our people, right? That we need to develop these stronger relationships with them, and they need to be accountable and responsive to our needs. I hope that answers it.
Thank you, Desiree. Oliver, do you have any comments that you want to clarify or make a statement or introduce yourself? Oh, you're on mute. We cannot hear you. Still having difficulty. No, I think you might have some audio issues going on, but if you'd like to clarify or put your comment in the chat, I can read it out. And that goes for anybody. If you have a comment or if you don't, want to audibly make a statement or introduce yourself, please feel free to use the chat. I'm paying more attention to it now. It's a little hard to do while you're facilitating, but please use the chat feature. Anyone?
I can also help out and read into. One thing too I wanted to add is that if you want to contact us in general, you can contact the Healing Council at this website, which also has a little contact form where you can put a message. And if you don't want to use the website, you can also directly email this email. And we just ask that you put in the subject line CTHC or Truth and Healing, and then we'll know that it's for the council. Oh, we have a raised hand from Toby.
Hi, everybody. My name's Toby Macleod, and I run the Sacred Land Film Project, non-native, so I don't want to take up too much time. But I've worked with Chief Sisk for many years. My wife Jessica is here too as a fellow documentary filmmaker. And Loretta, I saw in your PowerPoint, I mean, I'm really aware of the delicacy of the subject matter, the trauma, the historic genocide, repatriation issues. I'm an outsider. But if I just wonder who the contact person would be at the council to talk about future documentation in collaboration, if you guys want to do that, because it's just an unbelievably important story. I don't think during COVID, this isn't great for documentary filmmaking, but once you're having meetings, obviously it's going to be very sensitive, but also very powerful. So I don't know who the contact person would be to discuss. Okay, thank you. I'll just be in touch, and just wanted to introduce myself and say that I really think this is super important, and we would love to help do the education and spread the word. Thank you.
I am direct messaging you my email, and then we can set up a time to chat.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for that offer. And let's see, we do have another chat comment. It says, yes, I agree. Renaming buildings on campus are important aspects of relationship building. I believe we've seen that this year with the renaming of Kroger Hall. So thank you, Desiree. And I think, Oliver, I think your audio came back for a second while we were having that discussion. So if you want to test it out again, we're all ears. And if not, if anyone else has any comments either in response to any of this or in regards to subcommittees.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Oliver.
Yay. What I'll probably do is just text it out to you because it hit on a variety of areas. I like the information about having somebody in the colleges and supporting certain activities, like, you could support quite a few activities. Once I ran the scholarships for the Indian Health Service, and the main thing that I found is if I had mentors available within the school systems, it was very successful. And this is something that I think a lot of you that are here are actually mentors to your community. because you're encouraging them and providing information back to them how to participate. One of the things I think cousin Colleen knows, we sat through many, many things with Aunt Flora. She was my great aunt. And the thing about that was that she said to us, always, be positive, be there for people, be very healthy, eating always, seeing, looking around you and finding out what is needed. Some people hit on I'm going a little bit too long, but some people hit on the Indian people that weren't recognized yet. I would look back at those who are seeking to be recognized, like a lot of the people in the Wintu tribe. They've been trying and struggling for ever since I got in government. That's been I've been out of government so long, and 17 years plus being out of government 20. It's strange that it still exists. The list still exists. So I'll stop there, but mentorship.
Thank you, Oliver. And again, if you got more to say, definitely go for it. That's the purpose of the sessions, just so we can get as much input as possible. Please don't limit yourself. Does anyone who wants to go next?
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hi, we can hear you.
Oh, you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thanks for letting me in on this conference call. My name is Monty Bengochia. I serve two basic roles. One is I'm a tribal historic preservation officer of my tribe, the Bishop Paiute tribe. And the other one is I'm a chairman of the Owens Valley Indian Water Commission, which Terry Reddell spoke and mentioned some of the issues that the Owens Valley Indian Water Commission has been dealing with probably since 1990, which would be 30 years roughly. And I wanted to not so much go and restate what she said about first users' rights and but go back more into the education of the struggle that started back in about 1972, 73, when the late George Moscone, state senator, introduced legislation to create and fund 10 education centers modeled after the Owens Valley Indian Education Center, and how that all come about. And I won't go into too much detail, but I just want to make the point that the late Joe Carrillo, who was a part of the Native American Training Associates Institute, had a lot to do with this legislation. The late Joe Carrillo was from the Tule River Reservation down out of Porterville. So he had made some really good friendships with Willie Brown, who was then the head of the assembly, and of course George Moscone, and how this kind of came about to help fund 10 education centers, which later would become the means to fund 20 Indian education centers in California. And how how going back to that time was when there was no Indian casinos in the state of California, and how sincere these legislators were to not be be influenced by the economics of the casino industry, and how meaningful those education centers have been to the at least 20 California Indian communities in the state. And then kind of jump into little later on, there was a move by then California State Senator John Burton to look into the early California laws that impacted California tribes. And this order was given to the state librarian, who was Kimberly Johnson Dodd, who since retired from there, and she went into work for Caltrans. But they did a lot of heavy duty research into the history and the laws of California, and how it really, kind of devastated, that allowed the militia the California militia to carry out warfare against the indigenous people, allowed the state to impose servitude and laws that slavery laws back in the early years, and come up with the bounty of, from what I read, $5 a bounty in California. And the point that we always make is that one thing that saved some of our lives back then was that a lot of the young women and girls became prostitutes or slaves by this action. And so I just want to make that note that those, at that time, a law came out of it, and it was championed by then Lieutenant Governor Cruz Bustamante, and also by G.D. Halpert, who was a state senator, I believe, somewhere down in San Diego area. That they got this law on the books to allow a change in California curriculum, the public school curriculum, to give the Indian people their say in some of the history. And the only problem with that legislation, there was never no funding appropriated to really make it effective. But there isn't no reason why it can't be implemented now with a lot of the wealth that the California tribes have, from the gaming economics. And so from that, I just kind of want to bring up to maybe what I was in a meeting, virtual meeting that was put on by this group called 30 by 30. Was an initiative that when Deb Haaland was a congresswoman, that she was being concerned of the climate problems, that she initiated this concept called 30 by 30, which indicates that 30% of the land base and 30% of the ocean lands, or the ocean, not ocean lands, but the ocean life will be addressed with the threat of climate change. And that when the new president, Biden, he took this on as one of his campaign pledges, so that in 10 years, or by 2030, that they would have the 30% of these the basis of life being protected and being taken care of. And so out of this, there was been a lot of it was been led by the indigenous people throughout the country. So they had a leadership conference on it, and only because I got a friendship with Hawk Rosales of the Sinkyone Wilderness Project, that he called me up yesterday morning to say, does my tribe want to be on this conference call? And so we got set up. And so I didn't say nothing, but I got to hear a lot of, they had at least 10 high-powered new appointees in the new administration, including the head of the BIA and people from USDA that listened on to the concerns of the Indian country with the climate issue problems. So this is something I think is going to be still coming out there. So a lot of the points was made had to do with either direct management by the tribes taking over some of the public lands, some of the military lands was brought up, and if not direct management, then at least co-management with some of the public agencies such as BLM. When I say BLM, I don't mean Black Lives Matter, I mean Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Forest Service and U.S. National Park Service, who my tribe has been engaged in since probably right around the late 1990s, early 2000 era, and we're still engaged. We have 7 tribes that work with the U.S. Park Service in Yosemite, as well as another consortium that we deal with the military, Nellis Air Force Base down by Las Vegas. And there's a few other, the Coastal Hot Springs is another group. But you know, we're looking at how can we have more influence and more to say about what's going on in our ancestral homeland. And then it goes back to looking at revisiting some of the, you know, we mentioned some of the state laws, but how about the federal laws, such as the when California first became a state, and the law called the California Land Claims Act that set up the not an Indian Claims Act, but this overall Land Claims Act, that where people had to come and present their ties either through Mexican land grants or Spanish land grants or Aboriginal land holdings. But that was about a 2-year from around what 1850 to 1851, maybe 2, coming out of that what's called the Barber Treaties or the 18 unratified treaties. And so I've had the opportunity, you know, I always try to tell the tribes in California that we're part of these 18 treaties, which my tribe in Owens Valley region weren't a party to these treaty sessions or treaty right. They're not even treaty rights. We all know that the U.S. Senate did not ratify those treaties. But with the point I've always tried to make, or at least a half a dozen times, I heard this from I believe it was a NARF attorney when we were back in D.C. at the invite of the U.S. State Department when Hillary Clinton was running the State Department, and somebody came in and voiced their opinion that California tribes, by virtue of one party, meaning the U.S. government or dominant society, taken control or taken benefit of those lands that probably most of the acres of California, and that they should be entitled to what they reserved in those treaties, which was almost 8.5 million acres of land, that has some legitimacy. And I tried to make that point, even though my tribe has never been part of those treaty, you know, that treaty process back in the 1850s. But I know that we had our war chiefs back in that time. One was this guy named Joaquin Jim, who was chased out of Yosemite because one of the treaties was in the Mariposa region, and his group they were hell bent on not going into those treaty sessions. And then in our wars in Owens Valley, we had our war leadership that wasn't going to be a part of that. If I said, am I going too deep? You guys want to shut me off? Go ahead.
We're not going to ship you off, but what we are going to do is I did want to call some attention to, in the chat, there are a couple links to the Kim Johnson Dodds report, which was actually foundational for the apology and for the creation of this council, which talks about some of the early state laws. The Heritage Commission actually in the 90s or something digitally archived all of those original source materials. So we're looking into how to kind of transfer that to this space in case the council wants to see them. And then I did want to point out, because you brought up the 30 by 30 initiative, that the California Natural Resources Agency is actually in the process of tribal consultation, which is currently open, and they're going to be hosting listening sessions in several weeks. And so that's kind of an open process in California. This council itself, while it recognizes that there's sort of like a layered federal state responsibility, really is trying to focus more on what is the state's responsibility here and what should it be doing to kind of make up for that. So we appreciate your comments, and want to make sure that we've got about 11 minutes left. So want to make sure that if there are other comments that folks are able to weigh in. And then I did want to note that one of the topics of conversation, and Chairman Potter's on from Redding, so I thought I'd mention it, that came up earlier this week, was that there's been some gatherings in the Redding area, in the area where one of the 18 treaties was signed. And that's been kind of a suggestion of what maybe a future meeting for the council could be in areas like that are historically significant, but also significant because they're where promises were made but weren't kept. And so for non-native participation can really bring the gravity of what we're talking about to light. So I'll hand it back to Loretta, or it looks like Chairman Potter would like to weigh in.
So yeah, some of the things that we've been doing, and I know my cousin Colleen, she's been there at a few of them, one or two. We've actually been, doing Treaty H reenactments, and we've been gathering as natives and educating the community around us that, this would have been a reservation that would have been set aside for the Wintu people. But because it was never ratified, we deal with all these issues where we from Redding Rancheria have federal recognition. My cousin Colleen, who's a Winnemem Wintu, I'm a Winnemem Wintu, but they go without federal recognition. And it's all because of these treaties not being ratified, due to, the minerals and stuff that were found and discovered. And it causes issues within our country because some of the non-natives are like, well, I don't understand. You and her look the same. How can you, one be an Indian and one not be an Indian? And then, we have to go into all these details. But we've been educating people by reading the treaty and then, doing this initial march across the Sundial Bridge that is an important monument to the non-native people. They treasure all their little monuments and stuff. And we even pass out watermelon because in that treaty it says that the Indians so enjoyed watermelon, something they never seen. And so we'll each get a piece of watermelon and eat it like we're so, overjoyed that, oh, look we got a piece of watermelon and you took all of our country. And these non-natives are like, what do you mean? So like Enterprise, the mall, all the hotels, that all would have been your reservation. Yes, a 35-mile square, all on the, along the Sacramento River to the Tuscan Buttes and Red Bluff, up to the Big Bend in the Pitt River. All that land, the airport would have been art, all that would have been, but what was received was this 30.89 acres that to me was, like they were talking about the land claims earlier, and I've talked with cousin Colleen. If you go into detail of the California Indian Lands Claim, these rancherias, those reservations, all that stuff was, minused out of the 29.7 million, right down to the bullets that killed our people, right down to the $5 gold pieces that were paid for each scalp. If you look at the California Lands Claim, it shows the cost of $1 million that was reimbursed back to the state, and that was for 200,000 scalps. That at the end, a settlement that was supposed to be for our people, we paid for the killing of our own people from Miwok country up, because that's where the scalps, it started there and it made it up here in Miwok country and Wintu country is where the worst massacres were. And to sit there and think that this check of $649.72 is supposed to make the Indian people happy and compensate. Our land claims was fraudulent. 9,000 people voted yes of the 27,000 people that were registered. There was 8,000 that voted no. There was another 7,000 that never even voted. So to me, California Indians should still own the state of California. And in fact, if each person on that roll got that check and that was split up evenly, then every California Indian, there should be no reason California Indians are without federal recognition. Because from their compensation, they paid for the rancherias, they paid for every reservation without designation of tribe. It wasn't, oh, the Maidu's here, it was minused out because there's this many rancherias in there. So this is coming out from the Maidu share. It was equal amongst California without designation of tribe. And so every California Indian should be federally recognized because every federally recognized land base was minused out of that $29.7 million. And this is what we have to deal with. I feel bad, that my people, a large portion of my people, are without federal recognition. And the government sits back and enjoys that because then it almost created separatism amongst our people and stuff, but we still are Indian people and we talk, and we're going to come up with a solution and fix this one day. And we have to, if there's going to be any truth in healing, we need to bring up and get an international lawyer, because if you get a lawyer from the United States, they cannot do nothing for you because they pledged allegiance to the United States flag. And it says if you do anything against that flag, you're guilty of treason, punishable in life or death. You get life in prison or death. So get an international lawyer. As California Indians, let's open up the California lands claim. Let's file our timber rights. Let's file our mineral rights. Let's get what's rightfully back, and let's get every California Indian federally recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a raised hand from Kathy Corey.
Hilly. I'm Kathy Corey, Chickchansey, disenrolled from Picayune Rancheria in 2006, along with over 1,000 Chickchansey people. And I touched a little bit on this yesterday, but I wanted to speak to something that Colleen had to say in terms of natives on the judgment roll for California. Myself and my sisters are the last generation that have roll numbers for the state of California, as does my father, my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, and my great-great-great-grandmother. When you're disenrolled from a tribe, your true identity is stolen from you. As I said before, there are over 11,000 natives throughout the country, with a great majority of them in California being disenrolled by their own tribes. What does this say to our children about who we are? It's really important to me to work on a solution to this problem. And I can't help but get emotional as I'm saying this, because I think that every person that is unrecognized and every person that has been disenrolled remembers to this day how it feels to have that identity stripped from you, from your own people. I think this has a great amount to do with historical trauma and how that's affected our people and how that's affected the tribal council individuals that govern their people in their loss of the way to go forward and to complete our circle. Every single California Indian is a miracle. Our people were destroyed. Our culture was destroyed. Our languages were destroyed. Our children were taken. Our ancestors did what they had to do in order to survive. And often that was being turned into slaves, being, quote, married, unquote, to our colonizers. And I'm here to say the solution has to be found to the disenrollment issue. There are good people here that have worked very hard on this for years. I've been disenrolled from Picayune for 15 years. As I said, it's just like it was yesterday in terms of the emotions and the feelings and the hurt from that. I really believe that this council needs a representative from the disenrolled. I really believe that we have good people that will move forward, not only for the unrecognized, but for the disenrolled as well. There are individuals that have worked for decades on this. California Indians, Laura Wass, for one, Mountain Maidu, Gabriel Galanda, very well-known and very respected Indian country attorney, is Round Valley Reservation. We need to find a solution to this. And, you know, I really appreciate having a forum where this can really be discussed openly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy, for sharing that and for those comments. It's much appreciated.
Loretta?
Yes.
Oliver here. It brings to mind there's several topics that was talking about: disenrolled, Indian people that have reservations, Indian people that are seeking land recognition. Who does the governor deal with as federally land-based? And this is something that's kind of interesting because the land-based means a lot to who you're dealing with. And a lot of the councils that are reservation or rancheria based have limited resources because of the structure of that rancheria reservation. What you have to realize is the total state of California is our land. Once I was asked as a young kid, where's your land? And I looked around and said, this is all my land. And I've been trying to teach our representatives on our council who in our HWC band that the reservation was once an internment camp. And so, yes, we did function. Yes, we did very creatively still live and exist. I know Jack down in his Coal Creek area, I have to tell you the story about my aunt down there. When I went fishing, we happened to stay there with her, and she was fishing with her little pole out there trying to catch some fish. And I went, man, there's fish everywhere. And so I ran and grabbed my net, and being a little city boy, young boy, I ran in, jumped in and netted all those carp. And my aunt just cracked up laughing at me. And she kept fishing. I said, well, I've got some more carp. Took them all back down to the house, and she caught 2 or 3 trout. She says, you're going to eat all the carp. They're bony. I'm catching these trout. You know, you have to know what you're asking for, what you're going to take. You can't just sit back and think, hey, this is my reservation, my rancheria. You have to think what you have. Every tree out there is yours. When the Forest Service goes, or the short-lived Republic of California diminishes, where does that land go back to? Indian people. That's ours. Who gets paid first? Because there are reservations within the state of California. The federal government makes an allotment because the tax base is not there because of the land that is reservation. But I got to stop there. I'm getting carried away. Jack's getting too serious there. All right, love you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate your comment and your story. I did want to quickly draw attention to the chat. We did receive a comment from Anthony Trombetti from UROC, and mentioning the healing portion, and would like to see some grief work and practitioners coming on board, familiar with the intellectual headspace and the intelligence, which is your body space, needed in the healing process, and the creation of a ceremony for all California victims and perpetrators. So we see this comment, Anthony, and so just wanted to make note of it. And we are close to time, or we are at time now, but I'm just quickly looking at the chat to make sure there's nothing. So there's a MMIW NP rally in Redding Saturday. That's in the chat. Just wanted to draw that to everyone's attention. But thank you all for your time, and thank you for your comments. And again, please feel free to email your comments to our office as well. But again, put the Healing Council in the subject line so that we can categorize it. We get a lot of incoming. And so, but definitely please keep an eye out for the next announcement of dates. Again, we're going to stick to the 3rd week, or we're trying to stick to the 3rd week to have all of these listening sessions. We're going to most likely rotate days just to accommodate for everybody's schedule, to allow for, maximum participation. And again, you are free to attend any or all of the listening sessions. We do not want to limit anybody. And I want to ask council members if they have any last words, even though we're at time, but still, I want to leave that open to see if you guys have anything to say.
Yeah, I would just like to say that, you know, I think it's important for us to really hear where these words are coming from the folks that are sharing things, because, you know, when I look at this and it reminds me of my cousins are on here, and we all come from that same place. We come from the same kind of people that taught us. And it's like, we're at this point in time now, is that where are our kids going to be, or where are our relations going to be in 50 more years? What's going to happen to them if we don't fix this? If we don't fix this injustice and stop letting California and this separatism kind of haves and have-nots, and you have rights and I don't have any rights to be Indian, the struggle to hang on to what we're passing on to our younger generation, and recreating that ability to be tribal. We are struggling so hard for recognition and rights and opportunities. Like Desiree said, you know, my nephew Jamie, he can't get all the scholarships. You know, my nephew James went to college and he met with some other Indian students, and they were sharing what they got from their tribes. You know, some of them got cars. Some of them got their first 6 months of housing paid for. Some of them got, you know, scholarships to go to school. And it's like, he got a brand new shirt and pants and $20 for gas and, you know, a prayer, you know, going into the smokehouse and pray for you to make it, because this is all that we have. We don't have enough, you know, whereas the trickle down effect of all of these programs that go to tribes that could share, but they haven't found any reason or way to share with their relatives that are not on their list. And so, you know, I appreciate Jack's knowledge about all of the things. You know, we have those elders that shared with us and taught us that. But teaching other people outside that realm is very difficult when you're competing with casino and money. But my thing is like, we're competing with hanging on to basket hats. We're competing with teaching our kids how to take a deer, how to go fishing. You know, what is it that makes us Indian people? Let's not lose that in this struggle that we're going through. You know, let's have that ability to tackle the tough things, like recognition in the state. And like, what are we going to do about disenrollments? You know, maybe that would never happened had the casino issues not been laid out like they are. Because people in the judgment roll, bottom line is, we paid for all the land that recognizes other Indians. Yet we are discriminated against when it comes to the rights of Indigenous people and just general rights for religious purposes, for continuing on our dances and things. You know, we always break the law. They made us those lawbreakers. And that isn't much different than the law that was made to kill us. You know, we couldn't really support that law. We had to be lawbreakers. And right now, you know, fishing and hunting and all of that, dancing our dances on our sacred lands and our villages, we have to, regardless. Otherwise, we're saying we don't no longer want to be Winnem and Wintu people. We're just going to be, you know, one time ago, there was an Winnemem that lived on the river, and we were related to them, but we're not anything like that anymore. But we're still fighting for our salmon, as many tribes are in the North State, fighting for those salmon and trying to do the best that we can. And that's what this represents to me, is that we have an option and an opportunity to change those things for the future. Because like my grandma says, we're short timers here. And people like me, we've already lived most of our life. We don't have too much longer to go. but let's do some changes so that, you know, the grandkids and their grandkids can appreciate and love being the tribe that they are. Okay, that's enough. Thank you.
Any other council member, Councilmember Burris, or do either of you have any closing comments? Horkus,
I just appreciate everything everyone had to say today, and helping with that guidance for us to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Burris. Councilmember Horkus.
Yes, I just want to thank everybody for their words, for they spoke. I want to thank Creator for allowing everybody to be here today, to speak from the heart, that we were able to hear you, that our hearts were open, our ears were open. I just want to thank him for that. Normally I would ask for safe travels for everybody to go home, but we're here virtually. So I hope that you and all your families are well and taken care of, that Creator bless you, that we have hard work ahead of us, and it's together that we'll do it. And I always say, when things are meant to be, they'll be. Creator knows when things are meant to happen. And that's why this council is here today. That's why we were all gathered here today, because it was meant to happen. So I just want to thank him again for that. Shururu. Blessings to you all.
Thank you. And unless Christina has any other closing thoughts, we again thank you so much for your time and your feedback, and we will be in touch soon.